He was Hollywood's golden boy, the tall, stoic cowboy everyone adored. But behind the scenes, Jack Elam couldn't stand him, not one bit. Here's the story of the man Jack truly hated, more than anyone. Long before Hollywood learned to recognize his unforgettable face, William Scott Elam entered the world on November 13, 1920, in the small mining town of Miami, Arizona, already on a quiet path toward becoming one of the most distinctive and widely remembered character actors the film industry would ever know. Even in childhood, Elam showed a powerful pull towards stories, imagination, and performance. Small early sparks that slowly and silently built the foundation for a career that would stretch across decades of film and television history. But long before fame ever found him, war would leave its mark first. His service in the United States Navy during World War II shaped him in ways no acting class ever could, carving discipline, emotional toughness, and personal resilience into his character, traits that stayed with him long after he left military life behind. Carrying that hardened determination forward, Elam chose to pursue acting with real seriousness, enrolling at the University of Southern California to refine his talent and prepare himself for the unforgiving realities of Hollywood. From the very beginning, it was impossible to ignore his appearance. In a city obsessed with beauty and symmetry, Elam's most striking feature, his famously misaligned eye, instantly set him apart from everyone else competing for the same roles. Instead of trying to hide what made him different, he did something far braver. He embraced it. He turned what others might have considered a weakness into his greatest strength, shaping a screen presence that felt disturbing, unpredictable, and utterly impossible to forget. What might have ended his chances in another era became the very edge that made him unforgettable. Over a career that spanned more than 5 decades, Elam quietly built one of the most remarkable resumes in Hollywood history, appearing in more than 200 film and television productions and earning a permanent place among the industry's most recognizable character performers. Yet no genre ever suited him quite like the Western, where his rugged features, weathered voice, and intense stare felt as natural as dust, gunsmoke, and open desert skies. Films such as Once Upon a Time in the West in 1968, Support Your Local Sheriff in 1969, and The Night of the Grizzly in 1966 ultimately sealed his reputation as one of Hollywood's most reliable and unforgettable villains. Still, beneath the menace, the sharp edge, and the dark humor he carried into every role, audiences could sense something quietly unexpected, a fragile trace of humanity hidden inside even his cruelest characters. That subtle emotional depth is what separated Jack Elam from countless other screen tough guys, elevating him beyond the role of a simple bad man and ensuring that every performance he delivered lingered in the minds of viewers long after the final scene faded to black. Far from being confined to dusty Western backlots and familiar frontier stories, Jack Elam proved time and again that his talent stretched far beyond a single genre. He moved effortlessly from broad comedy to serious drama and even family-friendly films, a versatility that quietly but powerfully shattered the belief he could be boxed in by typecasting. Working alongside legendary actors and respected directors, his collaborations reflected not only his reliability and professionalism, but also the deep respect and admiration he steadily earned across the entire entertainment industry, a respect that endured throughout decades of work. Beyond the bright lights of the big screen, Elam's television career was equally tireless and far-reaching, marked by memorable appearances in iconic series such as Gunsmoke, Bonanza, The Twilight Zone, and The Lone Ranger. These performances permanently anchored his face and presence in American pop culture, making him a recognizable figure even to audiences who may not have seen his film work. Between 1974 and 1975, Elam stepped into a completely different spotlight when he took on the role of Zach Wheeler on ABC's short-lived comedy The Texas Wheelers, adding a surprising and unexpected chapter to his long and varied career. In the show, Elam portrayed a tough, emotionally distant father who suddenly reappears in his children's lives after their mother's death, turning their fragile routine upside down in ways neither he nor his children were prepared for. The series followed Zach's awkward, unconventional attempts to raise 4 children he barely knew, giving Elam the perfect space to display razor-sharp comedic timing. Beneath the hardened and gruff exterior of his character, he revealed a surprisingly gentle, vulnerable, and deeply heartfelt side, adding layers of emotional depth that went far beyond typical sitcom performances of the time. Although The Texas Wheelers lasted only 8 episodes, it drew attention for pairing Elam with future stars such as Mark Hamill, later globally famous as Luke Skywalker, and Gary Busey, making the cast especially remarkable in hindsight. Despite low ratings and swift cancellation, critics consistently singled out Elam's performance, praising the way his rugged persona and unmistakably eccentric screen presence added emotional resonance and a distinctive flavor to what might otherwise have been a fairly standard family sitcom. Elam deliberately sought unusual and unpredictable roles, pushing himself beyond the Western and villain stereotypes that had long defined his public image. This fearless approach led him in 1979 to one of the most surprising turns of his career, playing Frankenstein's monster on CBS's sitcom Struck by Lightning. The series revolved around a well-meaning scientist who discovers a family link to Dr. Frankenstein, and through a chain of absurd and escalating comedic mishaps, finds himself sharing his home with the legendary monster. Elam's instantly recognizable facial features, offbeat charm, and subtle comedic instincts made him an inspired and unexpectedly perfect fit for the part, blending gentle humor with the sheer novelty of portraying one of cinema's most famous horror figures inside a light-hearted sitcom world. Though the series failed to connect with audiences and was cancelled after only 3 episodes, all 11 episodes eventually aired in the United Kingdom in 1980. British viewers thus had the rare opportunity to witness Elam's unconventional, delightfully strange comedic turn. A small, unusual, but endlessly fascinating footnote in a long, unpredictable, and richly varied career that continues to capture the imagination of film and television fans alike. By the time the 1990s arrived, Elam was still finding ways to surprise audiences, taking on roles that quietly proved his remarkable range had never faded. As Hick Peterson in a first-season episode of the popular sitcom Home Improvement, Season 1, Episode 20, Birds of a Feather Flock to Taylor, he reminded viewers that his career still had spark. Sharing the screen with legendary Ernest Borgnine, Elam fit seamlessly into the show's playful chaos, his timing, delivery, and reactions proving his humor remained razor-sharp.
For fans who remembered him as a ruthless outlaw in classic westerns, seeing him effortlessly generate laughs in a modern family sitcom highlighted just how adaptable his talent was. Away from television, Elam strengthened his big-screen legacy with eccentric comedy. In the 1981 action comedy The Cannonball Run, he played Dr. Nicholas Van Helsing, a self-proclaimed, wildly unhinged proctologist whose bizarre antics added to the film's chaotic energy. Directed by Hal Needham and featuring Burt Reynolds, Dom DeLuise, and Farrah Fawcett, the movie followed a frantic cross-country car race full of slapstick and outrageous personalities. Amid the crashes and chaos, Elam's unpredictable doctor became one of the film's most memorable highlights, his performance so striking that he reprised the role in Cannonball Run 2, 1984, once again leaving audiences laughing long after the credits rolled. In 1986, Elam took on another unusual project with The Aurora Encounter, a weird western blending frontier storytelling with sci-fi elements. Playing Charlie Henkins, a town drunk whose erratic behavior shaped the film's eerie tone, Elam became central to the movie's haunting identity. Beyond the role itself, the production quietly became the place where one of the most meaningful personal connections of Elam's life would begin, proving that even in the midst of oddball characters and unconventional stories, his work carried both lasting impact and personal significance. During one unforgettable production, Elam met Mickey Hayes, an 11-year-old boy from Texas living with progeria, a rare condition that makes a child's body age rapidly. On the surface, they seemed worlds apart, a seasoned actor and a fragile young boy, separated by years, experiences, and life itself. Yet, against all expectations, a connection sparked, one that grew into something profoundly remarkable and deeply personal. Years later, their extraordinary bond was captured in the 1987 documentary I Am Not a Freak, offering audiences an intimate look at the affection and respect they shared. The film revealed a side of Elam often hidden behind the tough characters he portrayed, a kindness and humanity that shone as brightly off-screen as it did on. Elam once said, "You know, I've met a lot of people, but I've never met anybody that got next to me like Mickey." Those words endure, a testament to a friendship that transcended age, circumstance, and expectation. Through Mickey, the world glimpsed the gentle, compassionate heart behind Elam's formidable on-screen presence. Later that year, Elam expanded his television work, joining the cast of the comedy series Easy Street as co-star Alvin "Bully" Stevenson, the down-on-his-luck uncle of L.K. Maguire, played by Lonnie Anderson. He infused the character with rough-around-the-edges warmth, balancing humor with heart. The show centered on an unlikely household. Anderson's wealthy socialite opens her luxurious home to blue-collar relatives, creating constant culture clashes and comedic chaos. Elam's clumsy but lovable persona quickly became a source of laughter, his dynamic with Anderson providing a delightful contrast between Hollywood glamour and streetwise grit. Though short-lived, his performance left a lasting impression. In 1988, Elam returned to the big screen in the made-for-TV western Where the Hell's That Gold, co-starring with country legend Nelson Willey and Delta Burke. The rollicking adventure featured treasure hunts, double crosses, and vibrant, lifelike characters. For Elam, it was a return to familiar Western territory, but infused with the playful comic flair he had mastered. The magic lay in the effortless chemistry between Elam and Nelson. Their natural, laid-back energy carried each scene, creating moments that felt spontaneous, lively, and endlessly entertaining. Recognition for Elam's contributions arrived in 1994 when he was inducted into the Hall of Great Western Performers at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum in Oklahoma City. This honor celebrated a career that had shaped the essence of Western film and television. Elam delivered unforgettable villains, brought laughter through iconic comic roles, and cemented his place as a cornerstone of a genre that continues to capture audiences. Through every role, every friendship, and every screen appearance, Elam's legacy endured, a testament not only to his immense talent, but to the heart and humanity he carried both on and off the set.
For audiences and fellow actors alike, Jack Elam's induction into the Hall of Great Western Performers wasn't just an honor, it was proof of a career built on unmatched versatility, lasting impact, and an unforgettable presence in American entertainment. The moment people think of Elam, they immediately see that lazy eye, the deeply lined, weathered face, and the effortless way he could dominate every scene he stepped into. From playing ruthless villains in tense Western showdowns to turning into the lovable comedic old-timer later in life, Elam carved a legacy that refused to be ignored. Yet behind the camera, the man who so easily commanded attention on screen was unafraid to speak his mind, boldly, unapologetically, and often provocatively. He had strong opinions about nearly everyone he worked with, and there was one Hollywood titan who seemed to test his patience more than any other, the legendary Gary Cooper. Gary Cooper, of course, was one of classic Hollywood's brightest stars. Known for his quiet dignity, subtle style, and uncanny ability to convey authority with a single gesture or line, Cooper became the embodiment of the quintessential Western hero. To millions of fans, he was a natural icon, the standard of the silver screen cowboy. But to Jack Elam, Cooper represented almost everything he loathed about Hollywood's golden age leading men. Elam didn't hold back in his criticism. He insisted that Gary Cooper was wildly overrated, dismissing the so-called natural acting as, in his words, little more than standing around mumbling while everyone else carried the film. On interviews and on set, Elam would recount stories that cast the star in a less than flattering light. "Gary Cooper never impressed me," Elam reportedly said. "He was always just there." Elam watched as entire scenes, bursting with talented character actors giving their all, were routinely overshadowed by Cooper's quiet mumble in that low, effortless voice. And yet, critics would heap praise upon him as if he had delivered cinematic brilliance. "I never saw brilliance," Elam said with biting honesty. "I saw a guy coasting by in a cowboy hat." Much of Elam's disdain, he explained, came from what he saw as Cooper's lack of dedication, focus, and work ethic, a man who, in Elam's eyes, relied more on reputation than effort. While Elam poured every ounce of himself into even the tiniest roles, showing up hours early, staying long after everyone else had gone, sweating through endless rehearsals, he watched Gary Cooper glide on set with an air of effortless charm, seemingly untouched by effort. "If you asked me who was lazy, Gary Cooper would be my immediate answer. No hesitation, no second thought," Elam once said, his voice edged with disbelief.
He didn't hold back. He never rehearsed, not once. He never pushed himself. He didn't care if a scene came alive or fell flat. All he wanted was to survive the day, collect his paycheck, and leave, while the rest of us were bleeding to make magic happen. Elam's criticism didn't stop at Cooper's work ethic. It extended to the man himself. While the public admired Cooper as polite, reserved, even charming, Elam's experience told a very different story. People called him a gentleman, he said, shaking his head. Maybe if you were a studio head or a glamorous actress, but if you were a working character actor like me, forget it. He barely noticed you, didn't acknowledge you. That kind of aloofness, I have zero respect for it. For someone like Elam, who prided himself on treating everyone with dignity, from the stars to the stagehands, Cooper's detachment wasn't just frustrating, it was infuriating. But what truly drove him mad was the blind hero worship directed at Cooper. Critics, audiences, Hollywood itself, all falling at his feet, even when Elam felt the performances were flat, lifeless. Elam didn't hold back on High Noon, the film that earned Cooper an Academy Award. It was one of the most undeserved Oscars in history, he scoffed. You could have put a cigar store Indian in that role, and the performance would have been identical, but because it was Cooper, everyone bowed down. I never understood it. Never. And in the end, Elam summed it up in the blunt, unforgettable way only he could. Gary Cooper was like wallpaper. He was there. He filled the space. You only noticed him if someone told you to. And yet, somehow he became this towering figure in cinema. When Elam looked at Gary Cooper, he didn't just see another Hollywood star. He saw the industry's obsession with image over substance. To Elam, Gary Cooper's legendary stoic cowboy persona wasn't a testament to true talent. It was a reflection of audiences craving perfection. And yet, despite his sharp critiques, Elam openly acknowledged that Cooper had a fan base that adored him, fans who couldn't get enough of that tall, silent hero image. Still, that never stopped Elam from speaking his mind. He would admit, begrudgingly, that Cooper was the quintessential American hero, but only because Hollywood and its audiences wanted him to be, a flawless figure to admire rather than a complex actor to study. In reality, Elam argued, Cooper's acting rarely stood out. Even in his most celebrated films, he wasn't the actor who drew attention or carried scenes. His looks, perfectly suited to the roles he played, were what studios valued most. That, for Elam, was the ultimate injustice. Watching Hollywood heap praise on charming leading men while sidelining the hard-working, often underappreciated character actors who gave films their depth and soul became a source of deep resentment. Gary Cooper, with his effortless charm and iconic image, became the symbol of everything wrong with the system. For Jack Elam, a man who built a career from sheer grit, relentless effort, and a willingness to play the rough, often overlooked parts, that imbalance was impossible to ignore and impossible to forgive. He knew what it meant to fight for every role, every line, every moment on screen. Hollywood's favoritism towards appearance over hard work wasn't just frustrating, it was personal. Off-screen, Jack Elam's life had its own story of devotion and resilience. He was married twice. His first marriage to Jean Louise Hodgert began in 1937 and lasted until her death from colon cancer on January 24, 1961. Just 7 months later, in August of that same year, Elam remarried, this time to Margaret M. Jennison. Their union endured for an impressive 42 years, standing strong until October 20th, 2003, when Jack passed away peacefully from congestive heart failure at his home in Ashland, Oregon. A man whose life, both on and off screen, embodied persistence, passion, and the struggle for recognition in a world obsessed with image.